Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol has had many different adaptations that have more or less stuck to the same outline as the book. Whether it being an absolute classic, a Disney adaptation, or even musicals, the core storyline remains. But in 1988, a movie adaptation of A Christmas Carol was released and mixed things up a little, and that movie was called Scrooged. Scrooged was released in 1988, starring Bill Murray, not as Scrooge but instead as Frank Cross, the president of IBC Television, who has the task of producing a live broadcast of A Christmas Carol for Christmas Eve, with some questionable changes. This includes quite a few dance numbers, acrobatics and nipples.
You can see her nipples.
I want to see her nipple!
But this is a Christmas show.
Charles Dickens would have wanted to see her nipples then.
You can hardly see them nipples.
See, and these guys are really looking.
But Frank is just as heartless as a fictional character of Ebenezer Scrooge, and cruel to boot, even going as far as to firing his executive, Elliot Loudermilk, played by Bobcat Goldthwait, who I remember most from the Police Academy movie, for questioning Frank on his over-the-top commercial for the live broadcast of Scrooge. It is very dark and very terrifying, but brilliantly funny.
It is important to remember the true meaning of
Christmas.
And as the movie goes on, you find that he's not only got a black eye towards his employees, but also towards his family by sending his own brother towels as a Christmas present instead of a VCR.
Your brother?
Towel.
Your only brother.
And he also makes his underpaid secretary stay late on Christmas Eve and miss important appointments with her mute son.
When I work late, you work late.
But I made the appointment 2 months ago.
I care.
He truly is this movie's version of Ebenezer Scrooge. So it's no surprise that on Christmas Eve, Frank is visited by the ghost of his dead mentor, who warns him that he must change his ways or end up like himself, just like Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol. Now this scene is absolutely amazing. Obviously it's practical effects, it's makeup what's made his mentor look like a walking zombie, and I really do appreciate that. In later adaptations of A Christmas Carol, there's a lot of CGI, but this movie was made in 1988, so a lot of practical effects were used. Although there are a few special effects used when his mentor picks him up and pushes him through the window without shattering the glass. It's kind of magic, and it blends really well. And when Frank Cross is actually hanging outside the window, you can actually see the glass has been cut around the guy's arm. But it really works really well, and it's really effective, and you really feel the fear that Frank Cross must be feeling in that scene. It's amazing. His ghost mentor warns him that he will be visited by 3 ghosts. First, the ghost of Christmas Past, a chain-smoking taxi driver who takes Frank on a car ride back to the past. And then we have the ghost of Christmas Present, a violent furry who shows Frank the present and delights in physical violence, and even injured Bill Murray for real while shooting the movie. I believe she actually pulled his lip a little bit too hard and he bled a bit.
Touch me! Again! I'm gonna rip your goddamn wings off. Okay?
Oh, I like the rough stuff.
And then of course the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a terrifying Grim Reaper character with a TV for a face who takes Frank to the future to show him his fate if he carries on down the path that he has chosen. This movie is absolutely amazing, and it's a must-watch for me every single year. Christmas would just not be the same without it. Bill Murray, who is absolutely amazing in this role, came out of a temporary hiatus from acting since Ghostbusters, apart from making a cameo in Little Shop of Horrors as a patient who enjoys pain in the dentist chair. In fact, the marketing around this movie took advantage of Murray's Ghostbusters fame with a poster stating that Bill Murray is back amongst the ghosts, only this time there's no one to call. The director of this movie was the late great Richard Donner, who also directed Superman in 1978, Lethal Weapon and The Goonies, to name just a few. And I did notice quite a few returning actors from Richard Donner's other movies that appeared in this. Now, unfortunately, Donner and Murray apparently clashed on set due to disagreeing on the tone of the movie, but I think in the end they collaborated well. Like I said, it's one of my favourite Christmas movies, and I think it's absolutely flawless in many ways. Another cameo includes Lee Majors, who appears in an in-movie commercial for a TV special, The Night the Reindeer Died, an action movie spoof where terrorists are trying to kill Mr. and Mrs. Claus and his elves. And Lee Majors shows up to save everyone with a Gatling gun, which apparently is the same Gatling gun from Predator. It's just loads of fun. It's a really fun scene, and I love that this is the way the movie starts, with this, and you kind of wonder what the hell's going on. And then you find out that it's a Christmas commercial for IBC. And of course, let's not forget that Bill Murray's actual brothers also had various roles in this movie. And of course, we had the actress Karen Allen, who I instantly recognised from Indiana Jones, playing Claire, Frank Cross's past love interest, who he let slip away after putting all of his interest into building his career. And I must admit that some of these scenes are very effective. I actually think the love story of this movie actually works quite well, and it makes the rest of the story revolve around that storyline perfectly. And if it wasn't for Bill Murray, there wouldn't have been that many scenes featuring this relationship between the two. It was actually his decision to rewrite the script and include more of this love element, which I think was a perfect thing to do. And in a film that revolves around so much comedy, there are quite a few heart-wrenching scenes in this movie. I especially got choked up in the scene where the Ghost of Christmas Past takes Frank back to his childhood home, and we see the young version of Frank who is sat in front of the TV on Christmas Eve watching TV, and his father comes through the door with a Christmas present for him, and young Frank is excited because he thinks it's a choo-choo train.
A choo-choo train?
No, it's 5 pounds of veal.
But Daddy, I asked Santa for a choo-choo.
Well, then go out and get a job and buy a choo-choo.
It's quite heartbreaking, to say the least. For a movie made in 1988, I think the effects are amazing, whether that being special effects or practical effects, and the comedy is spot on. And it's even got a spooky, festive vibe that is brought to life by the talent of Danny Elfman, who did the score for this movie after scoring Beetlejuice. And Elfman went on to score other movies such as Batman, which had a very familiar sound as this movie. Now, initially the reviews for this movie were up and down, some were good, some were bad. And some reviewers even went as far as to say that Bill Murray's performance was like watching a man have a mental breakdown.
Now, I didn't like it at all, and I'll tell you why. I felt that I was picking up throughout the movie more of an aura of anger and hostility than I was one of comedy. For example, at the end when Bill Murray gives his long speech about brotherhood and loving each other and the Christmas spirit and the whole cast is behind him, that seemed almost like a frenzied harangue. It seemed like he was protesting too much, that he was pushing it. It didn't have any gentleness or any real warmth in it. It seemed like a guy having a nervous breakdown instead of having a Christmas message for us. And throughout the movie, I felt an undercurrent of a lot of anger and high tension throughout this film, rather than the humor you'd be looking for.
And mainly I think this is about the scene at the end of the movie where Frank Cross hijacks the cameras of the live performance of Scrooge and commences to tell the people at home how good it feels to be kind and caring and just full of joy. And apparently this scene was completely improvised by Bill Murray, and it did kind of look like a man having a mental breakdown, but I'd argue that in the original adaptation of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge is overcome with joy when he awakes on Christmas morning, so much so that he comes across insane.
I'm not mad.
Even Ebenezer Scrooge's housemaid thought that he was insane, as well as the many people in the street as he went along wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. So in my opinion, if the character of Frank Cross comes across as insane by the end of this movie, it's exactly how it was supposed to look.
The miracle will happen, and then you'll want it to happen again tomorrow. You just gotta want that feeling. And if you like it and you want it, you'll get greedy for it. You'll want it every day of your life, and it can happen to you. I believe in it now. I believe it's going to happen to me now. I'm ready for it. It's a good feeling. It's really better than I've felt in a long time.
For me, Scrooged is now a must-watch every single year, and I highly recommend it if you haven't already added this to your list of festive flicks.
Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.